All right, y'all, we're a couple hours removed from that Bengals-Giants game. And listen, the emotions are still running high. Shout out to everyone that did jump on that live stream, man. If you didn't check out my post-game video as well, man, make sure you check that out. We had a lot of people in the building, a lot of people that weren't happy, a lot of people that were calling me out for being a Daniel Jones lover and then a hater. Listen, I'm a critique of this football team. I'm passionate about this football team. Daniel Jones plays well. He deserves his credit. I gave him his credit. But I was, not going to lie, I was a fool for thinking he can do it back-to-back. I was hoping this would be the one time, because we have yet to see it, but I was hoping this would be the one time that he can go back-to-back. Giants would be 3-3. But here we are. Listen, this is not to harp on that. We're talking about the good removing from this game, man. We're talking about the good that we like to see. Obviously, the defense is definitely going to get their shout out. I think we got a new RB1 that should be getting a lot more snaps moving forward. So we got to talk about some of the silver linings that we've seen in this game, man. And in a time where obviously the Giants record might not be the greatest, but the defense looks pretty good. And it looks like they're turning the corner even without one of their star pass rushers. And let's jump straight into it. The defense. Listen, limiting this Bengals offense to, in my opinion, I want to leave it at 10 points. That last touchdown by Chase Brown, I don't really want to include that because the game was pretty much over by then. But 17 points to the Bengals, 10 realistically. And outside of a bad play call, man coverage, having nobody account for Joe Burrow, and he takes out for 47 yards. This defense had that offense on lock. They really did. This offense was going into it. They just put up 38 points on the Ravens. They had multiple outings where they're putting up more than 20 points, 30 points. One of the top offenses in the league. And Joe Burrow has been on a clinic. Now, if there's anything we've noticed from this Giants team, man, they're limiting people from scoring. They're not letting them in the end zone that much. We think about the Commanders game where it's just straight field goals. You think about this Cowboys team that only put up 20 points. The Giants have yet to allow any person to score over 25 points on them. And you could even lower that a bit. But all I'm saying is that some teams out here are letting people score, racking up 30 points. The Giants have not got blown out at all this year. And it's mainly because of this defense. This defense has been, carrying overall this team. It's been the storybook for this team the past couple of years, obviously playing good defense. And they always say, man, defense wins championships. It seems like you might need a little bit more than just defense. But right now, this front four, and I believe at this moment, the Giants still lead the league in sacks, adding a couple more. And once again, I spoke on the live stream. I talked about it in the video. I thought, them leading the league in sacks in 22, a lot of those came from 2 different games, so I wasn't too sure how realistic this is. Bengals, doing on the Bengals, I'll give them that credit. Joe Burrow is known for getting the ball out quickly, and that obviously manipulates how many times the Giants or any defense can actually sack them. Dexter Lawrence had a sack. Azeez Ojulari stepping up big time. And once again, Azeez Ojulari, it's always been him staying on the field. It's never been the fact that he doesn't have the talent. It's about him getting hurt. He's on the field. He gets 2 sacks, forces a fumble. Brian Burns, listen, you might look at the stats and see 1 sack and feel like he wasn't that much of a disruptor. Man, he was making plays yesterday. Shout out to, Shane Bowen once again. Shane Bowen's defense looked a little rocky, especially coming out after facing the Vikings, which the Vikings remain undefeated at this point. But the stunts that he was dialing up at the right times, man, Brian Burns was able to get to Joe Burrow clean on some different plays. And one of those plays in the fourth quarter, man, Brian Burns lit up Joe Burrow. I'm surprised Joe Burrow came back into the game. Brian Burns lit him up, didn't even land on him to let him land and not get that, obviously roughing the passer. Brian Burns had a couple tackle for losses. He was all over the field, and I'm glad to see it because, once again, this is why we traded for him. This is why we're paying him all that money. He still needs to continue to produce at this level, but I love to see this, obviously attention to detail out of him and Shane Bowen altogether. We know the defensive backs are young. We know they're not necessarily the greatest corners in the world, but this pass rush is really helping them out a lot. Deonte Banks, you didn't hear his name called too much. He was in position a couple of times against T. Higgins, so that'll remain to be the problem, man. He needs to make plays on the ball. But T. Higgins is, one of the top guys in the league for sure, and he was just boxing him out and coming down with some catches. Jamar Chase didn't have a crazy game. Cordell Flott was bracketed over with Tyler Nubin or Jason Pinnock. And once again, I got to give a shout-out to the whole defense altogether. I mean, Jamar Chase, he had his play in the second half where it was a scramble play, and they hit him for over 30 yards. You really just hope that play doesn't break down. But overall, they did their thing, and they clamped this offense down. This offense that, once again, was a week removed from putting up 38 points on that Ravens defense, putting up more outings against other teams where they put up more than 30 points. Overall, man, the Giants really shut this team down, and the defense overall, they got to get their flowers, man. Dexter Lawrence right now is already close to his career high in sacks, and we still have a long way to go in the season. So Dexter Lawrence remains to be obviously the best player on this team, and when it all gets said and done, man, maybe he could be Defensive Player of the Year. It's hard to see with this team being bad, but Dexter Lawrence is a wrecking crew. Him getting a sack in this game was huge, especially in the moment that it was, man. Once again, it's tough to see the defense performing at this level and the Giants not escaping with a win, but you got to take your wins where you can. Without Kayvon Thibodeau, I didn't know how this pass rush would fare, and they did well, man. Shout out to the defense. Now, the next part I wanted to talk about was Tyron Tracy. Once again, you look at the numbers, you look at his rushing yards, you look at, everything else. It doesn't look like a crazy game, but putting together over 100 yards of scrimmage yards, you love to see it, because this is a guy that, once again, with Devin Singletary being out, he got to try to take advantage of every rep he gets. He had over 100 rushing yards against Seattle, and here he is, 50 rushing yards on the ground. He's only averaging 2.9 to carry. A couple of the runs, he kind of sneaked out by himself, I'm going to be honest. He was getting skinny in the holes and making guys miss. And overall, once again, I just love to see the burst that Tyron Tracy has when he's hitting the hole. It's something that we're kind of not used to seeing, because sometimes you're used to seeing Saquon juke around in the backfield. Tyron Tracy hits the hole, and sometimes, it'll result in 2 yards, but sometimes he'll get 5, 6, 7. Tyron Tracy also did it in the receiving game. Obviously 6 catches, 57 yards, averaging 9.5 a pop. He was actually second or tied for first with Darius Slayton in yards yesterday and receiving yards. Tyron Tracy was doing it all. And if there's anyone we could look at leaving this game that you feel like was a playmaker for us, without Malik Neighbors, that was a big void. But Tyron Tracy stepped up and he did his thing. And once again, man, I spoke on it last night in the stream. We spoke on it all together. I think he should at least get 50% of the snaps. At least. And I'm talking about Singletary is still a solid back. Singletary was still making plays when he was behind this offense. But you can tell the difference when they each have the ball. Tyron Tracy's bouncing off defenders. He's looking to get any yards he can. He's a lot more, I can't guarantee that he's shiftier, but I think he's quicker than Singletary, in my opinion. So we'll see what happens when Singletary's back. But overall, man, Tyron Tracy is stepping up in a big time, and you love to see it at a time that, once again, the Giants team is going to be up and down. This roller coaster that is Daniel Jones on this team, a couple weeks he's going to look good and other people are going to benefit on that. But Tyron Tracy doing that in a week like this, you love to see it. And overall, hopefully he continues to build on that. So the defense and Tyron Tracy definitely gets their fair share of flowers after a bad game like this. Listen, y'all. The Giants are sitting at 2-4. I wish they were sitting at 500. And heading into this Eagles game, I would have felt really good heading into this Eagles game. Because once again, I don't think the Eagles are that good, y'all. It sucks to say that we're not as good, but this year specifically, the Cowboys and the Eagles are not that big of threats, and yet the Giants seem to still be at the basement of the NFC East. Commanders lost yesterday. Everybody lost. I'm sorry, the Eagles didn't win that game, but the way they were playing, it looked like they were going to take an L. But definitely a position that the Giants should have taken advantage of, and they didn't, unfortunately. But we move on, man, and on to next week with Saquon's return. Make sure you let me know how you feel in the comments, man. Who were you excited about leaving this game? And make sure you like up the video if you haven't already. I will catch you guys on the next one. Peace.